What's up, everybody? So it's time for another guide, and I want to cover Kilwa. The reason why I want to cover Kilwa is because, to be honest, I forget they're there half the time. And what I mean by that is whenever I start this game up and I want to play something, I'll figure out where in the world I want to play. And I typically, when I think of Africa, think of Western Africa, the Horn of Africa, Mutapa or Batua, and then Madagascar. And I completely forget that Kilwa is right here, and Kilwa has their own mission tree. So, because I keep forgetting that they exist, and because that makes me stop making a guide for them because I forget to do it because I forget they exist, let's do it now since I remembered that they're there. Now, as far as the estates and privileges, you can kind of grant what you want. This is what I recommend doing, but I have the monarch point generators. I have what I usually will grant just to get enough loyalty so I can keep seizing land. But other than that, you can generally grant what you want. There is a caveat to that. Merchant guilds, do be careful with this because you have a lot of influence there already. So just make sure that you don't grant too much because they will get more influence with events, and the last thing you need is disasters. So just be careful granting too much for the merchant guilds. And then with the Dhimmi, I do recommend this religious unity unless you're planning on converting nobody. I do recommend you grab this because it'll make it a little bit easier because you do start off, as you see here, with needing to convert people. Now, as you can tell, there is one province here that is a body, which is amazing, which means this is another alternative for how you can play the third way. In other words, you can just convert the Zanzibar and then drop the maintenance until they spawn rebels, have those rebels convert your country as much as they possibly can, and then flip a body. And that is a very, very strong play. And I recommend it if you want to play as a body. I am not going to, simply for ease, in a guide, but you can absolutely do this, and it's very strong because of that goods produced modifier. The reason why that's so important is because, well, there's a lot of gold near you, and having 10% flat goods produced with all of those gold provinces, let alone everything else that you're going to have, means you're going to have so much money you won't know what to do with it. So Ibadi is amazing to play as, but I might just simply stay as Sunni because I don't really want to deal with the rebels. So it is up to you what you choose to do. Have fun and go with it. But let's go ahead and turn to the army. The army is pretty simple to set up. You just need to hire stuff to force limit, so you're going to have to hire 3 infantry. As far as the navy is concerned, you're going to hire 4 transports. Send out your light ships to start protecting trade because that'll get you a little bit more money, but you are trying to complete 2 missions. First one right here, establish a trade fleet, build 25 light ships. That'll give you permanent claims up here in the north. And then the other one here, prepare the invasion, build a force limit, build 10 transports, and it gives you permanent claims on all of Madagascar. So by doing the Madagascar one first, you'll be able to secure this island, and then you can turn north because these guys are generally going to get very few allies. Ajuran might ally them, but it's going to be kind of out of your hands on who you're going to be fighting. But being able to come in here and pick off one of these smaller guys to the south, allowing you a landing that you can take on the stronger guys in the north, it's going to make your life a little bit easier. So build up the transports first, and then build the light ships after the fact, and you should be fine. But that being said, you do have a gold mine for a capital. I recommend not developing this immediately. Instead, wait for Renaissance to spawn because you do need to spawn it somewhere. And while this isn't a great place to spawn it in, you don't really have any great places to spawn it in anywhere near you until you start getting into the Horn of Africa. So go ahead and spawn it in your capital, and then you can spawn the other ones to the north later on. But for now, just hold off on deving your gold mine because you don't necessarily need it now, and you can use it later. With that being said, I actually have to spend some time building up my fleets and building up my army, but I'm going to drop my maintenance down because I don't need it right now. But I'll see you guys in a little bit. Welcome back, everybody. So I realized I forgot to bring you back and give you an update on what I'm doing, part of the guide. So first things first, I integrated Sofala the moment I could, because that'll complete this mission, and that gives you permanent claims on pretty much everything that is Mutapa, except for these 2, which they got from somebody else. Second, I did conquer all of Madagascar. These two are vassals that I'm currently integrating. Once that's done, I will click this button. It just makes it easier to convert that island, so it doesn't really matter, and it absolutely doesn't matter since you're Sunni, you do it with trade anyway. So it's helpful, not exactly that important. But once these guys are secured, I'll have plenty of money coming in. I already have dev pushed Renaissance, even though it's pretty painful to do it. Because realistically, you're not going to have much competition because Mutapa needs to get up to feudalism, and everybody in the north isn't going to mess with you for now. So just dev push it early as opposed to trying to keep up with tech. You'll eventually catch back up, but there's no reason to try and pay the extra 15%, 30% like you normally would, because you're not in any real danger. Once Mutapa's taken and you've secured yourself financially and gotten yourself out of the debt you're likely putting yourself in with these many mercenaries, then it's time to start looking at pushing into the north. It looks like Pate got taken out, and yeah, Ajuran did exactly what they usually do, and they allied both of these guys, which will allow you to snipe a lot of Ajuran if you're ready for it. And again, I'm doing all of this with no allies. You don't need them. Not really. So just focus on Mutapa and take them out. Make certain that you're not getting hit pretty hard by them, because the last thing you need to do is lose a fight to them, especially since you should be multiple techs ahead. This is why I say don't worry about Renaissance stepping. It doesn't hurt you that much. But with that being said, I'll see you guys pretty quickly. Hey everybody, so I just wanted to briefly touch on something. The moment you get this mission done, you have a conquistador allowing you to fog bust. Fog bust two things. You can either fog bust down to the Cape, like I'm doing now, because I will be deleting this free company because I can't afford it once I've integrated my vassals. And that way I can complete the next mission on top of that. And then you also want to fog bust this guy right here so you can attack him. The reason why is once you vassalized him and you integrate him, you'll get maps of everything he can see, which will be all of this. So you don't have to fog bust up here, but you do have to fog bust in the south. The only other thing I could say, though, is that if you do not want to fog bust in the south and constantly fight people as you go, if you wait until you can get your first idea unlocked and unlock expansion, you'd have a colonist, which allows you to turn it on to coexistence, which means they won't keep popping up, allowing you to walk there, fog bust all of the south, and be fine. So I'm going to, in fact, go up north, fog bust this guy first, and then continue down in the south, because I want to be able to get this guy off the map. With that being said, see you guys soon. And welcome back. So about 1470 on, the next ruler that dies, you're going to get a coup. And this coup gives you three choices, as you could obviously see. Two of them make you lose 2 stability, but you get a new ruler, and then the third one, you lose 1 stability, but you have to fight a bunch of pretender rebels. Now, I actually like my guy, but he's also 41, so it's one of those, do I take this guy? It's a little bit better, but also 2 stability loss, or do I fight a bunch of pretender rebels that might give me something worse? So be prepared to having to deal with this. In this case, I mean, might as well. And it looks like, yeah, 19-year-old 433. It's better than the lack of an heir, and this is not exactly a terrible heir, though he is absolutely not going to survive long enough to take over the throne. But either way, I'm working on giving one vassal up here, because usually what will happen is somebody up here will ally one of the guys down here, as will somebody in the Congo, and this allows me to keep expanding while I'm coring things up and getting myself ready to move through the mission tree. Also, I finished this mission because you have to get to tech level 6 with admin, so I do recommend focusing on admin points. I forgot to say that before. And then you can complete this mission, and then you complete this one. What this one does is it gives you a colonist, extra settlers, which makes it go faster, but it also spawns a colony on the Cape. This is not a normal colony. It doesn't actually cost anything, so you don't have to send anybody, but it does allow you to send another colony right next to it, so you can help block off the Europeans a lot sooner than you normally would. So try and get this mission as quickly as you can, and save up the money to build the buildings as quickly as you can. Once that's done, you do have a mission up here. Just requires you to have 20 development in your capital, which, since you're obviously dev pushing there, you should hit 20. And this will give you a nice little gold depletion modifier. So between that and your privilege in here, which I do recommend you take, the controlled gold mining, which makes it really unlikely that you're ever going to have gold depletion happen. Between those two, you will never have a gold depletion happening in your capital. Meaning this gold will always keep flowing in. So you never have to worry about it. So I am going to continue attacking these guys, consolidating some vassals over here. So when I do drop a colony right here, I can then integrate as much of the Congo and the lake area, the Great Lakes area here, into my country, and then I can start moving on the north. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. And welcome back, everybody. So I wanted to briefly talk about this because now you're going to shift heavily into colonization to lock down this area. Make sure you go in here and you grant the Grant New World Charters just to make it go by faster, as well as the Establish New World missions. Once you have colonists, if you wanted to, you could, instead of going coexistence, you could have gone the native trading policy. And because there is a decision in here that'll give you the other 50%, that way you're not having to fight the natives. You just have to keep clicking that button. The problem is that I did point this out before, you're going to have a lot of merchant influence. So again, make sure that you are trying to keep that tamped down, because I have granted a lot to them, and that can eventually come back to bite you. So just keep an eye on it. You should be fine. But yeah, just try and stay up in terms of tech so you don't get unbalanced research, and bank up enough military points so that you can try and dev push colonialism, because you're not gonna spawn colonialism. It's just not happening. I've done this about 30 times and I cannot get colonialism to spawn. Maybe you will get lucky through events or just through better play and you might be able to pull it off, but I have yet to. And once you have exploration here, that is the time when you need to shift to be focusing on diplo points, because now you need to start getting these ideas filled up. Having one colonist here will help. Getting to this third one helps more, but you don't need to rush this. Just get the exploration up and off the ground as quickly as you can. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and keep moving forward because I have some Congo to consolidate and a few more places here in the Great Lakes region, and then I'm going to start pushing north. See you soon. Welcome back. I just want to briefly point out, when you get through here, this mission requires you to have provinces that connect down to the Cape. It'll upgrade your center of trade by 1 level, but it only works if it's level 1. So don't waste your money upgrading this, because it'll just make it go away. Alright, see you guys soon. Welcome back, everybody. So I took this quite a distance into the future, because other than bringing you back to say, oh, I'm attacking this guy now, there really wasn't a whole lot to say. I spent my time attacking people here in the Great Lakes and in the Congo region. I then Kazembe. Eventually I released Ndongo, and I finished them all off. During that time, as you can see, I did colonize all along the coast. The reason why is that, well, Europeans tend to focus on the New World first, and then they'll start moving through Africa, probably around 1520 to 1530. So if you actually stay down here and then wrap up here as fast as you can, you're going to be able to block them off from having the range of going to the east at all, allowing you to then turn around and colonize all of this before they can head and get to India from this direction. So you have extreme range playing as Kilwa. I mean, you have pretty substantial range. And this is without any of the other things like a advisor or clicking the decision in here that'll give you an extra 10% range. So you can very easily make it probably to about here without any difficulty and just start colonizing quickly all of the Indonesia region and then focus on India. So race to about here as quickly as you can. If they get some of the islands, that's fine, but you want to keep them off of mainland Africa as much as possible. And if you can get St. Helena, all the better, because they're going to have substantial difficulty until they get very far down the tech tree to reach over here. from even St. Helena. So if you can do what I've done here, you're pretty much going to have a solid game of dictating all of the trade, all of the money here. That's one thing I wanted to talk about. What's up, everybody? So it's time for another CDQ giveaway, and this one is for the Quarry. If you want a copy of this game, just leave a comment below that somewhere in it contains the word Quarry. At the end of the week, any comment that does so, I'm going to randomly pick one of them and reply to it with the CD key for this game. Now, obviously, anybody can see this, so be sure to have your notifications on so you can put the CD key into your Steam account first. Otherwise, somebody else could steal it from you. With that being said, let's jump back to the guide. The other thing I wanted to talk about is your mission right here, Reconnect with Persia. And you can complete this mission by one of three ways. Either have an ally or a subject own Shiraz, have one unit, so one regiment, standing in Shiraz, or you own Shiraz yourself. Don't own it yourself. The reason why is the reward for this is an event called Send an Embassy to Persia. Now, if you own it yourself, congratulations. You just got some legitimacy and prestige. That's it. That's all you can get out of it. On the other hand, if somebody else owns it, whether it's a subject, an ally, or you just put a troop there and you're not allied to them at all, they can choose to allow an embassy. If they refuse the embassy, you just get a negative modifier with an opinion of them, which obviously is bad. The other option, though, is that both Shiraz and your capital, whatever that happens to be, but it should be Kilwa, yeah, you're going to have a modifier attached to that province and will remain there so long as you own your capital and whoever owns Shiraz at that time maintains ownership of it. So in my game, I'm allied with the Ottomans. So I want them to take Shiraz because the likelihood that the Ottomans will ever lose it, pretty low. But here's the thing, that modifier, it gives you +1 diplomatic relations, so you can keep that alliance or that subject or whatever it happens to be for the rest of the game and not have to worry about it. 2, it gives you 25% increased institution spread in your capital. So if you didn't dev Kilwa, you can then dev Kilwa and it'll make it go faster. But also, if somebody is selling you an institution, that will also make it go faster. So it's a very nice modifier to have, especially since you're going to have to be deving institutions or receiving a selling of an institution, which, by the way, I also have a ally in Holland, just because they will typically sell me an institution because I have so much money that they will be glad to sell me all the institutions, and since it's Holland, they always have them, making it so you have to dev just a little bit less, though whether you'll be able to pick up a Holland in your game, kind of questionable. Now, here's the thing. So long as you guys maintain this embassy, so they don't lose Shiraz, you don't lose your capital, and it's ownership, not control. So if it gets occupied, that isn't the condition, it's you lose it in a war. Then you get pulse events. These pulse events are kind of bad, kind of interesting, and it's based off of your religion. You have the non-religious ones where you'll just get a quarter of your yearly income, or you'll get some monarch points. It's like 50 admin, 50 diplo, or 50 military points, and like a 1% chance where you get 50 of all three. The other ones, though, are tied to religion. If you are the same religion, so if you stay Sunni and you end up picking up a Sunni person here, then you can get free stability, but it'll only fire every 10 years. If you're at 3, then you get 50 admin points. If you are not the same religion, it can fire either them trying to push the religion on you, or you can try and push it on them. If they try to push it on you, you can either flip to their religion, so you can become Shia, you can become Ibadi, or whatever it happens to be, or you get 5 piety, which is this mechanic right here. So you'll get more mysticism or more legalism based on whichever side of the equation you happen to be when the pulse fires. The other options, though, specifically the do I force the religion towards them, you don't convert them. Instead, either you have a choice of 25 prestige, which, okay, or you will lose the embassy, but in exchange, you get claims, not permanent claims, just basic claims, on all of the Persia region. So all of this, you'll get a claim which will last for, if I remember right, 20 years? Give me a second, let me check that real quick. Sorry, it's 25 years, not 20, my bad. But this is advantageous because if you do flip a body, and then you ally the Ottomans or Persia or whoever it happens to be, you can get all of those claims, and that gives you a substantial amount of time to build up a navy, build up an army, and attack whoever it happens to be. Because again, it's not what they own in the Persia region, it's just the Persia region. So I can go after Hormuz if I want, or I can go after Transoxiana, I can go after Persia, I can go after whoever I want that's in the Persia region and just go take some land. Which gives you the advantage of going up there and getting a toehold in the Persia region, which will allow you to expand into West Africa, the Horn of Africa, Indonesia, Persia, which will also let you get into Arabia, because let's be honest, that's close enough. You have a lot of opportunity to expand in a lot of different directions based just off of the few events in your mission tree. The other one that's in here is the trade route to China. This just fog busts a lot of this, and it's not really worth trying to rush, because by the time you get to this point, you're probably going to see all this. The advantage it does give is it exposes some of the stuff in India, but it doesn't really matter that much. The last thing I kind of want to point out about this is that you have a lot of money. I mean, you should have a ton of money if you're playing correctly and you're not wasting money on dumb things, which means you can pretty easily get into India just because you can just come down here and charter a company. And once you can get in there that way, okay, apparently I can't charter a company from you. So if I want to, I can just come here and I can buy a province from them that'll get me up here for 4,000 ducats. But when you're making 25 ducats, 40 ducats, 50 ducats a month, that's not that substantial. That's pretty easy to do if you're playing tall with all the gold mines that you have, not to mention the fact you can get so many more down here. The other thing I wanted to point out was what you just saw. Do upgrade this monument to level 2. Don't push it to level 3, because tech cost is what you're going for. The cost to fabricate claims is complete garbage. You don't need it. There are a couple of other great projects you should be focused on instead after you get your Zimbabwe one up to level 2. The first of which is here in the Congo, right here. It starts off just giving you some institution spread in True Faith provinces and reform progress growth, which are nice modifiers, but not the end of the world. But towards the end of it, you get a lot of the institution spread, so it will spread fast, saving you a lot of money and time because it moves a lot faster. But it'll also give you the ability to revoke estate privileges, ignoring the loyalty to influence ratio, which is very, very nice to do once absolutism starts, because at that point, you'd usually rather have none of these and more absolutism, and being able to just revoke all of them is a very nice thing to do. The other thing to point out, and I wish I had thought of this in my Ottoman guide, this monument right here would be amazing for the Ottomans to get out of their disaster. Being able to revoke a bunch of privileges against the Janissaries or against anybody else is very nice to do for them, because they kind of need it. So this might be something for you to rush through when you're playing the Ottomans, just because it might be able to save you some major headaches. Now, the other ones that you should go for, there's one up here in Bengal. This gives you trade steering, ship trade power, and merchant, all three of which are amazing to make you just tons and tons and tons of money. So if you get this one early enough, and you can get there again just by buying one of their provinces and then invading them, you should be able to make your money back without a whole lot of difficulty. You'll just have to devote yourself to building a lot of trade ships. The last one to grab is right here. It's kind of the same principle. 20% advisor cost will help save you money, but if you get this only in the late game, it's absolutely not worth it, because by the time you get the money back, the game's already over. So these are just ones that are useful to grab, but not that imperative, and the longer you play, the less imperative they get. So, and then the last one you have is actually in your capital. This one is not worth the 5,000 ducats, but if you're already hard into the trade ship moneymaker from Bengal, the extra 10% that you can get from upgrading this might be worth it, but generally speaking, I don't think it is. So if you were to upgrade these, I would say Zimbabwe to level 2 is your top priority because tech cost is huge for you. Then I would focus on the Congo until I hit absolutism. After that, it'd be Bengal, then Kilwa, and then probably the advisors, just because it's another person you have to invade. But you should be making so much money that you can do all of these without much difficulty, because you're going to be able to not only make all the money from all the gold mines, which I still haven't even developed, and I'm still flowing in gold. But on top of that, you should be able to get all of the trade flowing through Indonesia, India, Australia once it's colonized, Horn of Africa, Arabia, and potentially even Persia flowing down into your node, making you so rich it'd be completely unbelievable if you haven't played this before. The last thing I wanted to touch on is how to keep yourself safe while playing Kilwa. And the reason why is that while early game and the early middle game, so basically through the Age of Reformation, you're going to largely be okay. Your troops are going to be fine. And the reason why is you're in the East African Tech Group. And for those that don't understand what tech groups are, they basically control what units you have in here and the amount of pips that those units have, which control how much damage you take and how much damage you deal. East African Tech Group is actually pretty strong early game and to mid game, so basically through Tech 15. But after that, you'll notice there's a huge jump before you get your next units, and it's pretty substantial. Tech 23 and beyond, these are all weaker than basically anybody else in the game. So until Tech 15, you're doing fine. At Tech 12, at Tech 5, you have some of the best units in the game. Tech 15, you're keeping up, and then you're going to lag behind. And you're going to stay behind. Which means if you are constantly in the face of and on a bad front of the Europeans, whether East or West, or Muslims, or wherever it has to be, all of these tech groups are going to generally be stronger than you at that point. So you need to get to defensive points. You need to get to a position where you can use the terrain and use the bad attrition to weaken and soften them up, or just have massive, overwhelming numbers. The good news is as Kilwa, you don't have much competition coming from the south. Just like Mutapa or Batua or anybody else like that, you can conquer through West Africa pretty easily. You can conquer through the Horn of Africa pretty easily. But you'll eventually come across some very large powers that will still be able to stomp you into the ground. Now, where are some good choke points? Well, the first one is actually right over here in Cameroon, because they have to walk through this narrow area, so just building fort, 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 it forces them into jungle terrain, which has very bad supply. If you don't develop it, it's even worse supply. It's dice roll for the attacker negative penalty, build ramparts there, it's even worse, and you can try and bleed them out, making it so when you attack them, you do substantial damage to them, and eventually they'll just run out of manpower. The only time this has ever failed for me was in a multiplayer game, when two people voluntarily destroyed the game to make somebody else reform the empire, and I was fighting the entirety of the HRE. So, for the most part, doing this will win you the war unless they have infinite manpower. The other locations are up here, because they have to cross these 2 points. There's nothing really here that'll give them any kind of extra supply, and they'll have to be able to reinforce, and while you don't get any dice rolls here, it's just a bad place for them to have to fight you. And you can build on the other side some decent development to have some supply. The other position is right here, because they have to cross a strait. If you can maintain on this side of it, this mountain will also be just devastating for anybody trying to cross through. Because if you build a rampart here, -3 to dice rolls, plus attrition, again, you can generally hold out very, very long term simply by proper reinforcing. And if you use the strait, if you win a fight, you can then send them back, your navy back out just to hold the strait for a second, forcing them into a stack wipe, which means you can just bleed them dry over time. And that's basically all you need to know to play as Kilwa. You see, Kilwa's in a very unique position in this game, something that you really don't see that often. You are in a position to have all the money in the world, whether it's through the trade all flowing into you, or it's from the gold mines that start off everywhere nearby. You are able to build a massive financial empire, but you also have no competition for building that empire. Because unlike everybody else around you at the start of the game, you have feudalism. Only the people to the north are able to compete with you on that, and nobody's going to get past these two guys because Ajuran's going to ally them, not attack them. Meaning, you're safe. Mutapa, Batua, people on Madagascar, people in the Congo, none of them have feudalism, which means while you start off at tech level 3 for your military, they're at tech level 2, and it costs them 50% more military points to get to tech level 3. Meaning you can dev an institution and still tech up and still be ahead of them. Meaning you should be able to conquer all of Madagascar, all of the Batuan area, and all of the Congo, and all of Rwanda's area, the Great Lakes, with no real difficulty. Which is why I didn't show you any of that, because realistically, you should be stomping people. Just take proper fights, use mercenaries, because the attrition down here is just atrocious, and you should be fine. So what do you really need a guide for is the mid to late game. Fighting the Europeans, colonizing where you grab things, building a strong empire that can take people on when you have disadvantages, which is what I've been talking about for a while. Now, the last thing I really wanted to point out is this mission down here, the Gulf of Aden. I have made a mistake every time I've played through this, and I've played through it about 30 times trying to make sure everything works in this guide, and I keep making the same mistake, and I just want to make sure you guys don't. Specifically, these are normal claims, not permanent claims. Every time I play through, I click this because I want the trade steering. It's a shiny button, I have to click it, so I click it, and then I get claims on every coastal center of trade in the Gujarat node and the Coromandel node, which are quite a bit of claims. And I'll be sitting there going, oh, I need to attack Gujarat. Well, I'll attack Gujarat. I have to attack the Mamluks right now. Or I have to fight Ethiopia. Or I have to fight Mali. And eventually they expire 25 years later. So just be sure you don't click the shiny button until you're actually ready to go over and invade Sri Lanka, so you have a toehold to start pushing into India. Because nothing is more annoying than not being able to expand into India that easily because you let a claim expire through your mission tree. So just be aware of that. And that wraps up the Kilwa guide. If you like this video or you like my guides in general, like and subscribe. It does help my channel, and I definitely appreciate it when you guys do. If you want me to cover any particular country, whether that's one I haven't covered yet or I have, let me know in a comment below. However, if I've already covered it and it's out of date, let me know that. I don't like having old information out there that's wrong because that doesn't help anybody. So if you know that there's a guide that I've made that has been changed substantially and now needs to be updated, tell me, because I have no problem going back and fixing it, and it will definitely move it to the top of my priority list because, again, I want to make sure you guys have accurate information. But see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day.